Okay, everybody, welcome back. We're back now with Will Perkins. So before I introduce Will is going to be talking to us about requirements gathering. Will is a leader in analytics at JP Chase. He spent years honing the craft of data visualization and storytelling while driving for a stronger data literacy culture within his firm. Are you ready, Will? I can see you dancing there to the music.
Of course, definitely ready. Let me
Awesome.
share my screen. All right. Everybody see?
Looks good.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for coming here. As Sarah said, my name is Will Perkins. I work at JP Chase. I am a data visualization manager. If you want to connect with me on social media, I don't have a consistent username on any one of those links. So I am on Twitter at Gringuinho, which is Portuguese for the little gringo. LinkedIn and Tableau public profiles if you want to connect. So allow me to introduce myself. Figured I'd give some fun facts. You know, those are always good to get to know people behind the visualizations, behind the avatars, as Adam and Hunter talked about as well. So fun facts about me: I love truffled stuff. I just love the flavor of it. So if there's truffled French fries, truffled butter, truffled whatever, I'm going to get it. And I love old fashions and all the different variations. So I'm not just going to order an old fashioned if it's not on the menu. If they put it on a special drink menu, then, you know, I'm going to order it because there's something special about it. I hate the taste of chocolate. It is disgusting. I can taste if there's chocolate in something. My wife loves it because she doesn't have to share. And that's always a good thing to not have to worry about. I also love to travel. We generally go down to Brazil every year because that's where my wife's family is from. But we also love to go to the beach when we can get away. We're in Dallas. It's a couple-hour flight to any of the resorts down in Mexico, and a good time away. So a little bit about myself personally. Professionally, I'm a former bartender and waiter, and I'll explain as to why I put that in here. I've been in the financial services for 9 years, with Chase for 6.5. I've been a Tableau user developer for 5 years. And as I mentioned, I'm a data visualization manager. Now, I added in the bartender and waiter portion because I feel that, you know, that experience has given me a lot of personal experience on how to deal with customers, how to wear multiple hats, right? I gained a lot of transformational skills that, you know, they call it soft skills, but it's anything but soft. So a lot of times I make analogies when I talk to people about, you know, data visualization, work in general. A lot of my analogies can kind of go back to either the restaurant industry or breaking things down from a customer perspective, or how to deal with customers. And then so that helped me with my transformation into the financial services because I pride myself on being efficiently lazy. I don't like to work hard if I don't have to. If I can automate something, if I can make things simple, that really does help my my day-to-day items. So if I can automate something that's going to be used time over time as opposed to just hitting a button, I'm going to do that. I'm going to work towards doing that. And I use that even going into data visualizations. How can I make this foundational report be scaled? You know, we have changes. We know changes are going to occur. How can we work those changes in as we're building it? Prior to learning Tableau, I knew nothing about data visualization. Data visualization was kind of thrown at me from a job skill perspective, and it was just, to me, it was one of those things that it's a part of the job. I'll do it. I can make charts. It's easy. I didn't really see a value add until I went to Tableau Conference 2016, and I was able to see the light, so to speak. I stopped looking at data visualization as a job function, and I looked at it as a career. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of opportunities when it comes to data visualization. And that mindset shift has really accelerated my career path. Over the past couple of years, my Tableau evangelism has grown. I have helped set up our first internal Tableau user group at JP Morgan Chase, and now we have Tableau user groups across the world, which is exciting. We've got internal Tableau events, right? It just really helps build and drive that data culture. So that's a little bit about me. I do want to say, this topic was inspired by Shanchili Jagannath's topic and the 29th, I almost said last year, but it wasn't last year. It's now 2 years ago, Tableau conference. I watched this talk, and my brain just started firing off on all cylinders. Like, how else can we implement this? What are some ideas? Where are some not necessarily pitfalls within her approach, because all approaches are going to be different as we will talk through this, but what are some things that maybe our end users need or want and desire that's not in this presentation, right? So shout out to Shanchili for putting that together and kind of giving that foundational experience. Now, I've done this presentation a couple times within the firm as well. Kind of talked about business requirements and everything. And after a couple times of doing that, I saw this wonderful thing from Judith Becker about her thought process of starting to build a new dashboard, right? When it comes to building requirements and dashboard development, we're going to find out that we are all solving the same problems, right? Our stakeholders have a use case. We are there to help them, and we come up with a dashboard. Now, every person is going to have a different thought process of going for those solutions. How do we work through that, right? There's a myriad of things. I'm going to talk about what I feel is very beneficial from our business perspective, right? I'm a full-time employee. We're a firm. We have controls. We have governance. We have all these different functions that we have to take into consideration. Some of y'all out there are going to be independent consultants. Some of y'all work for a different firm, right? Some of you do this as side gigs, et cetera, right? So everyone can have some sort of jewel or tidbit to take away from this. If it doesn't all apply to you, great. If it all applies to you, great. I really want to help teach and expand on the business requirements aspect, because this is a passion of mine. So what is your key takeaway from this presentation? I have 3 main takeaways that I want you to remember. 1, you're not a Burger King cashier, okay? 2, you're not a Burger King cashier. And 3, you are not a Burger King cashier. So what do I mean by this? All right, let's dive into kind of like this analogy. Let's kind of pull that thread a little bit. So what is a typical request scenario? Let's look at it from a fast food customer perspective. You go to Tableau Burger and you say, I want a number 4 combo, no pickles, no onions, extra large fries, Dr. Pepper Easy Ice, because I like the way that picture looks and I want to eat that. That looks really good, right? You have expectations as a customer of what you want and what you're going to get. And if the order is correct, you don't thank the cashier, you don't thank the people who prepared it. There's no recognition, right? And if you're the cashier, right, you don't get thanked. You don't feel that praise. If the order is wrong, you feel the brunt of the customer. The customer will contact you. Sometimes they're happy customers and they say, hey, you know what? You made a mistake. It's okay. I'll take this, but just to let you know, here's your feedback. But almost always a manager is contacted. Complaints are going to be made. Those customers are going to tell their friends, do not go to Tableau Burger. They just can't get your order correct. It just doesn't work. So what does it look like in the business space? You have a business requester. I need a dashboard. I don't want anything fancy. I want lots of filters. Give me some extra large pies. Add a couple tables in there for good measure, because I don't know what I want to. I don't know what I need for this dashboard, but I know this is what I want. Oh yeah, and here's a mock-up of exactly what I want to see. Right. So if you do that, if the deliverable is exactly what's requested, again, you don't get recognition. You don't get thanked. You gave them exactly what they asked for, nothing more, nothing less. And if you don't give them what they asked for, then you almost always hear about it. The manager is contacted, complaints are made, peers are told, don't work with Will. He is the worst because he doesn't give you what you want. So how do you flip this script? Well, what is an ideal request scenario? So a lot of times I compare this to becoming a data concierge, like a reporting concierge. Because when you work with a concierge, so whenever you travel to a new city, right, and you stay at a hotel, I mean, yeah, we've got access to Yelp, we've got access to reviews, but sometimes you want to find out from the locals, what is a good local place to go visit? What is a good thing to do? So the concierge customer relationship, the customer has needs that they want met. So let's take into consideration, we want dinner. Last time I did a work trip, my boss and I went to Chicago. I had never been to Chicago before. I was literally going to be there for 24 hours. And I asked our concierge, where is the best place to go eat, walking distance? And I'm starving. And we got a good per diem, so I can go all out. So there's dialogue between the two parties. Concierge asks some follow-up questions. The concierge says, well, do you want steak? Do you want, Italian? Do you want pizza, right? We're Chicago. We've got lots of great pizza places. Do you want local? Do you want chain? Do you want regional? What if you wanted to drive, right? So there's a dialogue between the two parties. So the concierge is walking the customer through those different options. Then from the customer perspective, you make those decisions based on that new knowledge. I hadn't even thought about taking a quick Uber ride. I don't have a car, so I was thinking walking distance. Well, there's a couple options that are a 5-minute drive from where we're staying, right? So I make those decisions based on that new knowledge. After dinner, generally the concierge from a customer service perspective will say, Mr. Perkins, how was dinner? Did you enjoy it? And the feedback could be given back to the concierge. You know what? We started going that way, but then the Uber driver recommended something that I'd never heard of, and that sounded better. So next time person comes in and asks for this, you might also want to check out this restaurant, So there's a relationship. There's not a negative, or you're not expecting one answer, one solution. You're expecting a plethora, kind of a menu of items to choose from. So how does that work with the business scenarios? Well, developer and stakeholder. The stakeholder that has needs that they want met. So let's say this is a report. It's an analytics process. So there's going to be a dialogue between the two parties as you're talking about the new request. When do you need it by? What exactly are you looking for? Do you have something already that gives you what you need? Why are we doing this? Is it automated? Right? There's a dialogue between the parties. The developer walks the stakeholder through those different options to say, look, we can do A, B, C. Here are some additional things that you haven't taken into consideration. The stakeholder now makes those decisions based on that new knowledge. They may have said, we want 5 pie charts, and all those pie charts have 80 different slices, and I want a pie chart of a broken down slice of that pie chart in order to see another pie chart, right? That's really bad experience. And so we talk about how can we help those out. So the stakeholder may say, oh, you know what, you're right, I was wrong. This sounded good in my head, but that's the only thing I knew. You have opened my eyes to, bar charts or whatever the scenario might be. And then after the delivery of the solution, there's generally feedback, right? It becomes an iterative process, and you can say, hey, this worked, this didn't work. How can we move things along, right? So you build a partnership, not an order taker relationship. So whenever I do presentations or talk about anything data culture, data related at the office, generally this is the question that I get asked: how can I drive change, right? So many times it has to do with the lack of experience, the lack of confidence, or understanding of an impact that one person can have within an organization. And I know Fee Gordon mentioned it yesterday, how one person can have an impact no matter what the size of the company is. One person can always make an impact, and being confident in that thought process is very important. You were hired for a reason. You're a business analyst, so you have skills and desires that people are coming to you to ask questions because they don't know the answer, or they might not have the skill sets, right? So being comfortable and confident. So how can you drive change? A lot of times it's understanding the request. So no matter what the LOB, like the line of business, the industry, whatever, we generally do not solve new problems, right? We solve the same things. Generally, people want to know how an an item is trending over time? Are there dips that we are not expecting? What is the distribution between classifications? What's the distribution of my customer segments? And a lot of times you might not understand the jargon that people are saying, but if you can break things down to the lowest common denominator and say, okay, we're trending these widgets over time. How many groups of widgets are going to fit into this category, right? If you can start breaking that stuff down, it really helps you understand the request to speak more confidently and comfortably to these scenarios. Creating a partnership environment is key, right? So everyone should have an equal voice at the table when we're talking. These are things that are very important and very critical, because it's not going to happen overnight. If you don't have that culture already, it's not going to happen overnight. But it will be something that if you continually push for, continually ask for, that is going to be a game changer. So don't give up. And I'll say it's the process, not the product. A lot of times people say, I need this report. But everything that goes into that, the pre-work, getting the data prepped, understanding the request, understanding what's the reporting aspect, then it goes to the data visualization, right? So it's a wash, rinse, repeat. And I put data visualization because maybe not everyone, I know this is the Tableau Fringe Festival, but Tableau might not be the visualization tool at your company, right? So it's the process of getting to data visualization, not getting to a Tableau dashboard. So why is the process important? I found this image back in October from Amanda Makulik. I can never say her name right. So I apologize, Amanda, for butchering your name. But she did a presentation on why it's important for data visualization professionals to understand how data is curated. But this is also part of the process of business requirements, is understanding these things, knowing that business, like the simple easy read chart, is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many things that fit into this aspect. Now I highlighted those commonly overlooked items, for like business use cases. I end up identifying personal potential bias, right? A lot of times people come to us and say, well, my status is really green. I know the report's showing red. It's just because we've got these updates we haven't gotten into the system yet. So can you show my report as green, because that's important to us, right? We've got this update and it just won't get in the system in enough time for us to do this. Well, that's a potential bias that we don't want to have to worry about, like building to somebody's expectations as opposed to letting the data speak to the items. Understanding why anomalies show, right? Sometimes it's hard to do the anomaly analysis because people are just saying, just throw this in there. So why do anomalies show? And then updating calls to action. I kind of have not a hard and fast rule, but if I haven't changed the dashboard that has, calls to action or metrics that the goal, goals, whatever, things that they're going to, if I haven't changed that in about 12 to 18 months, is that really driving business use cases? Are we really making decisions based off of this dashboard? And so as we're going through, you might be thinking, wow, this really seems like the waterfall mentality, like get everything up front. Please don't go chasing waterfalls. Please stick to the scrums and the sprints that you're used to, or whatever your development process is at your company, right? This is more to understand conversationally with your customers to get to a point where you just need to understand what the roadmap is. Sometimes you get into traffic, you can be detoured, but you just need to know where you're going to go. So my proposition for y'all is you can have success in 4 easy steps. So step 1, to understand what that roadmap is what is the long-term vision of these requirements, right? Where are we going? What is your expectations? Defining the technical specifications of the build. I'm going to go into more detail, but understanding the technicality of how people access it, the ways that they're going to access it, like the channels that they're going to be going through, ensuring that the data is secure, the dashboard secure, that people are only seeing what they're supposed to see, making sure there's not ability for data to be misused, misrepresented. And then defining the style and design from a user experience perspective as the final product, right? So having an understanding of what all of that's going to be will get you your final roadmap. Now, as I said, it's success. Note Overnight results are not guaranteed. If you are experiencing trouble, please consult your team leadership. Side effects of implementing these steps might include, but are not limited to, a more inclusive work environment, open communication, improved dashboard solutions, and stronger partnerships with team members and stakeholders. Right? So this is an investment that you are going to make into your process, into your team, into your company. So let's move forward. So step one is understanding the requirements vision. What are the goals of the dashboard? Now I've got dashboard as an asterisk here because we understand dashboard has a meaning as Tableau developers. Dashboard is one group of worksheets and objects on one particular dashboard. You know, we've got the workbook that has multiple dashboards, worksheets, etc. But our stakeholders generally say, I need a dashboard. And when they say I need a dashboard, they just mean they need a solution. They need something to answer their questions, right? A dashboard cannot answer 100% of all potential questions. So this conversation really helps them focus in on a particular item, right? There can be multiple goals on a dashboard, but asking when they say, I want to track the number of customers that bought this product. Okay, what are you going to do with that information? Well, I just want to know how many customers bought the product. Well, do you want to know this month, this year? Are you trending over time, right? Getting in and talking about what those goals are and how you can help them move forward. Defining a business value. A lot of time, like our line of work, sometimes it's very hard to define a dollar value or a value add, right? We anecdotally understand Tableau, like the data visualization space, data analytics, adds value to a business, but how can you put something to that value? Now, it doesn't have to be a dollar value. You don't have to say this one dashboard can save $20,000 a year and wasted time that a person is building a report manually, right? You can, but you can also say this one report is replacing 8 different reports. This one report is helping us avoid, it's helping us monitor items so we can avoid potential regulatory fines, so we can afford, so we can do X, Y, Z, right? Everything doesn't have to be a hard savings. Some are going to be soft savings. Prioritization is key, and part of that prioritization is understanding the value, because if you can say, hey, I've got these high value items, they're more of a priority than this ad hoc request. And also understanding prioritization can be different levels. Maybe this is an urgent ask. Maybe this is a long-term strategy, so it's not so urgent. It's just something that needs to get into the queue so we can start working towards it. And this really does help your book of work management. And other items to include are, it's more like, what's the name of the dashboard of the solution? Sometimes people will say, well, I want to track business metrics, so just call it business metrics. Well, that's not helpful. I want something a little bit more specific, customer sales metrics for X process or whatever. Understanding what is a desired completion date. A lot of times people say, here's my requirements and I need this by end of next quarter. And you don't have data, you don't have any way of creating anything up to that point. But you can say, oh, you need it by the end of next quarter. Let's try and work towards that. But we're not going to guarantee that it can be this quarter or next quarter or whatever, right? It's having those conversations of saying, look, we've got all these other priorities in front of you. We've got this, so let's make some adjustments. Also defining who the audience is. It's very important to understand the audience between senior executive leadership all the way down to the line level analyst and everything in between. If you have a dashboard that's being used by the line level analyst and the executive leadership, that's not a good user experience for the executive leadership because they don't care about the same things. Maybe they care about the same numbers, but it's at different aggregate levels, right? So understanding that build and understanding that process is going to be very important for you to go to development, right? So that's part of understanding the requirements vision. Now, when we get into technical specifications, this is something like, how are people interacting? What are the channels of use for the dashboard? So basically how do they see this information? Now, it could be you have Tableau server or some sort of web portal that people are interacting with, right? So they can click, they can highlight, they can filter, they can do all these, interesting things. A lot of times, things end up in PowerPoint decks. Things end up as static images. They end up in PDFs. So understanding how the end user is going to be interacting with this report is critical to understand. How are you going to design? If they can interact, maybe I don't show all of my labels on all of my line charts, but maybe I only show like the endpoints. But if they're not interacting and they need to know exact information, and it's going to be in a static file, I'm going to have to put different labels, different interacting, different color keys, etc. Right? Tooltips are going to be useless in those aspects. So there's ways that you have to design, and understanding that is going to be very critical. Know what kind of device are people using. If I build for a mobile device, am I building for a cell phone or a tablet? Am I needing to have a solution for both? Are they interacting on a desktop? What size is their desktop? Do they have large monitors with low resolution because they have accessibility issues? They have low vision problems. All of these things need to be taken into consideration. Now, you don't have to have answers for everything, but when you raise these questions as you're engaging with the stakeholders, it's important to take that thought process into consideration. Who owns what piece of the process? An analyst shouldn't be the data SME, the QC, the business stakeholder. Like there's a lot of things that we should understand who should own various pieces of the puzzle. Now, maybe it's a small organization, or maybe you are the independent contributor that has to do all that stuff. But understanding what role should you reach out to? I need to talk to Jane Smith, who's in charge of my client engagement, because she's the data source SME. She understands what the data should and should not be. I need to talk to Steve Johnson, who's the business owner, and say, what, hey, business owner, how are you going to be using this? What's important for you? And that way, that's part of building those people to say, when I have meetings about this dashboard, when we're updating things, you guys should be at the table with me, because this is going to be an iterative process. We're partners. Y'all's success is my success, and my success is your success. I don't want to build something that's not used, right? So having those iterations. How often do you need this information, right? So understanding what type of refresh schedule, understanding what kind of dependencies you're going to have in place is very critical to how you can define the solution. If someone says, I need this to be updated daily, but the data source is always just as of the end of last month, no matter how many daily refreshes you do, you will still only have the end of last month's data until you go into the next month, right? So maybe that's a use case that the business has to go back and say, oh, well, we should have daily data. Now let's go back and fix this. And they adjust that part of the process. So you might need to engage more people. If it's a scenario like that, you might need to engage more people and say, here's how we can help. Like, let's build a stronger foundation. We're not ready for data visualization. We need to get the data prepped and ready. Now we go into a security model. Now, I can tell you, working in a highly regulated, highly governed organization, this is a highly critical piece of the puzzle. Yet for a lot of people in general, this is something that's commonly overlooked until the end of the development, right? It's important, but it's not as important as creating a pretty visualization that our end users are going to use. And then it's like, oh yeah, how are we going to implement security, right? So understanding, is there an existing dashboard in Tableau with the same controls? If you can cookie cut what already exists, that's going to make your life a lot easier. A lot of times, depending on your organization, maybe you don't want certain people looking at different products, right? You've got some products that are, top secret, so only a particular amount of people should see it. And maybe it's you selected by a group, you selected by the username, whatever. You can build up that security model. You need to know, will those controls be applied globally to the dashboard, the workbook, the solution, or are there going to be different pieces? Like, people can see everything except for this one KPI. This one KPI is triggered only for the executive leaders. They need to know what their capacity planning is, but no one else should see what that capacity planning is. So it does add, like, as you get further and further, you're going to see this can get more and more complex. So that's why understanding this in the beginning is going to be critical. Then you also need to know what groups and individuals are going to be accessing this dashboard. So you talk about the executive leadership. Is it going to be, if we're looking at banking, are the people in auto finance going to be looking at the same information that people in the mortgage industry and the people that are in the consumer industry, et cetera, right? Are we going to need to have these different groups see the same thing, or are they going to see different things based on filters, right? So all of this stuff is going to really help you structure data, structure the dashboard, build your row level security or user level security or whatever. The more descriptive, the more engaged you can get with your end users and understand this, the stronger foundation you're going to have. Then a lot of times I will say this is important, but I don't want to say this is the most important because all of these are very critical. The reason why I think this might be the most important, besides it being data visualization, is this is where the confidence as a data visualization professional needs to shine, right? The rest of that stuff you can learn, you can go through, and you can, engage your partners. You have different conversations. It's all more customer service experience. This is where you need to put your kind of feet in the sand and just dig in and say, there are things that you're not going to accept. There are things that you can be stubborn. And if you don't, you'll learn how to do all this stuff as you get more and more confident, more and more, engaged in these processes. You're going to need to learn how to manage up, manage down, manage sideways, manage, all around, because a lot of this stems down to communication, and communication is going to be critical. Message delivery can make or break this portion depending on various things. No matter how good you are at your job, message delivery can really hurt on this part. So, I say don't accept a proof of concept or mock-up as final draft. So you can say, when the end users come and say, this is exactly what I want. A lot of times you say, this is a good idea, and ask questions. What do you want from this portion right here? What is important about this bar chart? Is there any particular reason why you're trending over time using bars? Do you want a line instead? Right? So asking these things and kind of digging in and say, based on my experience, these are things that we have done in the past. The more times people start putting, like, investing their time into a proof of concept, the more married they get to it. So if you can kind of stop that buck early and say, you know what, let's not even work on a proof of concept. Let's work on your solutions. Here are the things we're talking about. That really helps because they haven't invested that time, and then say, well, I already gave you my proof of concept. So you want to set some realistic expectations of style and design. You want them to be able to have, like, if you have a type of style or template that you adhere to, say, this is what we adhere to. What you have provided me is outside of that, or this is what we adhere to. This is how I can take some of this stuff out and show you the information that you're trying to find, right? There's a lot of factors that you need to take into consideration when developing a visualization. What type of chart types are you trying to use? Am I doing a distribution over time? Am I doing whatever, right? There's so many different ways to get into that. And don't be scared to say no. And you can read that again. Don't be scared to say no. Just because someone might have a higher title than you, just because they might, be very stern and say, well, you have to do this. You can say, that's not the right thing to do with your data. That's not the best way to use our server. You have a data source with 10 million records, and you want to show every single record for every single view. You're going to have a horrendously slow dashboard. That's not a good user experience, right? So dealing with stakeholders is a lot like negotiation. You can say, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're looking for, but there's a way we can get down to this. You want line level information, but I don't need to see 100% of those lines all the time. I just need to see all of my customers that haven't bought anything in the last 6 months, that are in this state, that are this cohort, this age range, whatever. Now we can start drilling down and getting into that information where maybe I do give you a table of line level information, but I've already cut out the majority of that aspect, right? And so it's like I said, this is a very tough part to kind of navigate these waters. And people sometimes are not confident with that, but the confidence will come with time as you get better in the craft, as you get better with your communication. These things will become a little bit more natural. I do tell people I sometimes can sound like a stick in the mud, but it's because I'm passionate about what I do, and I'm passionate about providing the right solution for my end users. I don't want to waste my time, and I don't want to waste their time. Because if I provide a solution they think is right, and they stop using it 2 months later because it's not really giving them the information they want, and they're just downloading the data anyways and creating their own reports on the side, I lose insight of that, and I just wasted my time developing all this information, right? So there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. Now I will say I'm going to restate the success model. So you lay out the requirements vision, you define the technical specifications, secure the data and visualization, securing the data and visualizations, understanding visualization goals through examples. Explain, I didn't touch on this, but sometimes you can say, hey, don't put a proof of concept together, but have you seen things before that you like? Are there dashboards that currently exist in your portal through Google that you have found, you've come across, and you say, hey, these are a really cool way to show KPIs. Can we work this into it? There's a really neat way to show trend over time. I want to break this stuff down where I just only focus on our business and everything else is kind of muted, right? Provide us pictures, provide us images, but don't need to say, I'm going to take my data, make it look like this, right? And again, overnight results are not guaranteed. So if it's not working at the very beginning, just keep trying, keep pushing, constantly changing that needle will change people's hearts and minds. It is very much I don't want to say a political approach, but you have to be cognizant of how perceptions are, because perceptions are reality for a lot of people. So if they see it's coming from a genuine path, then a lot of times they're more open and apt to listen to you. If they say this guy's a jerk, he's always saying no, then you might have adverse reactions. But don't stop trying. So I want to leave you this with the Irish author Joseph O'Connor. He said, if you do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. If what you are doing is not working, do something else. Many times people will talk to me and say, I know I need to change. I know our org structure needs to change. I know our data culture is bad, but no one listens, so I give up. Then you're part of the problem. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's, keep trying, keep working to evolve this, because if all you're going to do is complain, that's not working for moving that needle forward. So how can you work a little bit here and there? Sarah Burnett talked about implementing Tableau days or data culture days. Fee Gordon talked about how you've got the single person who can really drive that change, right? Listen to all these fabulous talks that we have going on this Fringe Fest. We got a lot of great people. There's a lot of words of wisdom that you can take and just get little nuggets from here and there and put that together and build your confidence, build your understanding of organizational change, data culture change, and hopefully with this on business requirements, you can change how you guys work and develop. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. We've got a couple of questions for you, but before I go through them, I just want to say that it was fantastic. This is a topic that I'm quite passionate about, so it's really great to hear it from your perspective. And I really appreciate how you kind of focused in on the relationship between the person building the dashboard and the person with the requirements, right? And having that two-way dialogue. I think that's really key, right? And I think again, that goes back to the talk we just heard from Hunter and Adam, where they emphasize that as well. All right, so with the questions, I'm going to combine two of them together because they're quite similar, but we have a question from Vince, and Vince has asked, Will, a dashboard that was designed to answer a business question 2 to 3 years ago may no longer be relevant. How would you recommend making the decision to modify a current dashboard versus develop a new one?
I mean, part of that's going to be, looking at usage. If people aren't using it anymore, going back and saying, hey, you've got 3 people accessing this and you've got 150 people that have, ability to see it. Is that really a useful dashboard? Is there anything on here that you like? Is there anything on here you don't like? What has changed? So it's all about managing your portfolio and understanding what people are truly using and what's actionable.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have 2 questions that are kind of similar. So I'm sure you probably preempted this one, but do you use a checklist or a template to guide the conversations and requirements, or do you do it organically with this kind of model in mind that you spoke through?
Yeah, I mean, right now I do it very organic. I will Perkins do it very organically when somebody comes out to me and asks for things. Our organization, we use Jira. We've got stories. We've got epics. We got all. I'm not as into the Jira lingo as probably I should be, but it's more having the end user understand. So if you do want to build it into a checklist, it's very easy to do, and it doesn't have to be something where they check and say, okay, what's this end user? And that's one of the things that I was inspired by Shanchili's presentation. But I looked at it and I said, this doesn't fit my model, the way that we work at the office. I want it to be a little bit more organic. That was very specific to what filters should you put on this worksheet. Whereas my dashboards, I could have 3 different worksheets that look like one dashboard, or one worksheet, or whatever, dynamic titles and then this. And if even the way I create some of my filters, somebody wouldn't say organically, like, okay, well, I want this filter to be date diff 0 to -6, because I want to see a 6-month trend. They wouldn't know that. But having that understanding of, this is the stuff that I'm trying to solve. These are the things that keep me up at night, and this is how I want to interact with it going forward. It's going to be in my web portal. I'm going to have this engagement, or this is going to go to our senior leadership, and they love tables, and there's no getting around that. So how can I make these tables a little bit more accessible? Giving, not metric overload. It's, those are the things that I take, and I try to keep it organic, because I try to be very natural in having these conversations, and I want the people to feel that natural passion, right? I want them to feel that I am invested in this just as much as they are. Whereas if you have a checklist, it feels very like structured. You answer these questions. I'm not listening.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that you risk those questions not being relevant, right? And then you just go off on a completely different tangent. I find, the templates are very prescriptive, whereas this needs to be more organic. And I've used Chantilly's template, and it's great, but I see that coming further down the line once you have some requirements and you kind of know what you're building. It's almost quite good for the person visualizing to kind of think through how they're going to kind of lay things out and what filters they're going to include and things like that.
Right.
But yeah, thank you so much. I don't see any more questions coming in, but loads of great feedback is coming through in the chat. So, oh, and hang on, we just got one more. Luther's just asked a question. So he says, what tips do you have for encouraging leadership to bring more people to the table across the organization around data viz?
Yeah, so that's kind of an interesting thing. Like, I had talked with people before, like, they're having a grassroots approach is critical, but also having the leadership buy-in is just as much critical, right? You have to have people, are they invested in Tableau? Like, what is their, or are they invested in a solution? Regardless of tool, are they invested in a solution, in a automation solution, in a visualization solution? Getting that buy-in and saying, I could have had this done quicker had we stopped, or had we done all of this in the beginning, right? If it took me 6 months to get to this solution, if I would have had the right tools or the right communications, everything was built in a silo, I could have worked with the team before I even started getting the data to say, structure the data this way, because I know how Tableau thinks. So structuring it this way would have saved me X amount of time to market. Just having those kind of buy-ins, and do it with your leadership, and then that can roll up. I feel very fortunate that plug for JP Morgan Chase, we have a strong data culture, and our executive leadership is really bought in on data visualization, Tableau, where there are some people that say, don't give me Excel reports anymore. Do not give me PowerPoint. If it's not in Tableau, I don't trust it. Right. So that's a strong thing. And so once you get the grassroots and the senior leadership coming through, the people in between are going to have to adopt, right? Because you got these people saying, this is what we should be doing. This is the leadership saying, this is what you should be doing. And then the people in the middle are either going to need to adjust or get out of the way. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the ultimate place you want to get to, right? Where people are asking for things in Tableau and not on an Excel spreadsheet or by any other means. And you raise a good point in your talk around understanding the who is behind like the data. So who are the people you need to reach out to, maybe on the data engineering team, that can help structure your data for you. And I think it's really important that you build the relationships with those people. So you can really get things done quicker and not be reliant on people, doing things wrong and then slowing down the process for you to get that visualization out. But no, thank you. Really appreciate you coming on today. And yeah, thanks. No more questions. So we're going to take a